The challenge arrives. The quantum mechanical puzzle box arrived on a Tuesday morning, materializing in the center of the United Nations General Assembly, with all the fanfare of a soap bubble popping. Its surface rippled with impossible colors, displaying equations that seemed to write themselves in midair before dissolving into fractal patterns that hurt the eyes to look at directly. Ambassador Chen of Earth's Unified Space Council barely managed to maintain her composure as she read the attached message from the Galactic Confederation. To the emerging civilization of Sol 3, we present the Concordance Puzzle. For 10,000 years, it has tested the intellectual limits of every spacefaring race. None have solved it. Most have gone mad trying. We offer it now, as is customary for newly contacted species, though we recommend focusing on your agricultural development instead. The message concluded with a statistical appendix listing the mental health casualties among various alien civilizations. The logical Concordat of Proxima Centauri had apparently spent 3 centuries attempting to solve it, only to collectively decide to become space shepherds instead. The quantum minds of Sirius had tied their consciousness into such complex knots trying to unravel its mysteries that they now communicated exclusively in interpretive dance. Well, Ambassador Chen said to the assembled human delegates, at least they're giving us a chance to prove ourselves. She paused, watching the puzzle box spin lazily in midair, its surface now showing what appeared to be a Klein bottle playing chess with itself. Though I'm not entirely sure if this is a test or an elaborate cosmic joke. Dr. Sarah Martinez, Earth's leading quantum physicist, stepped forward to examine the box. Her instruments registered readings that made absolutely no sense. The device seemed to exist in 17 different quantum states simultaneously, while also somehow remaining perfectly still. Fascinating, she muttered, before her tablet computer briefly displayed the entire works of Shakespeare translated into interpretive dance notation, and then decided to become a small potted cactus. Traditional approaches won't work, she announced, setting aside her newly succulent technology. Every civilization that's attempted this has tried to solve it through pure logic and computational power. Looking at these readings, I'd say we need something different. Different how? Ambassador Chen asked, watching as the puzzle box now appeared to be teaching calculus to a group of theoretical particles that didn't technically exist. We need people who don't think like scientists, Martins replied, a strange glint in her eye. We need people who think sideways. That's how, 3 days later, the fate of humanity's standing in the galactic community came to rest in the hands of an unlikely trio. Jamie Wong, a game designer known for creating puzzles that made players question the nature of reality itself. Maria Patel, a kindergarten teacher famous for explaining quantum mechanics to 5-year-olds using nothing but finger paint and snack time analogies. And Carl Davidson, a janitor at the Unified Space Council who had once fixed a malfunctioning quantum computer by hitting it with a mop in exactly the right spot. It's like one of those magic eye pictures, Jamie said, squinting at the puzzle box which was now attempting to divide by 0, while simultaneously composing a haiku about its own impossibility. You know, the ones where you have to unfocus your eyes to see the hidden image. Maria nodded enthusiastically, already spreading out a collection of crayons and finger paints. Exactly. The Confederation is thinking like grown-ups, all structured and logical. But look at how the patterns move. It's playing. The whole thing is one big game of cosmic peekaboo. Carl, meanwhile, was quietly circling the puzzle box, mop in hand, occasionally nodding to himself as if having a silent conversation with the laws of physics. Reminds me of my grandmother's knitting, he said finally. Looks like chaos from the front, but turn it over, and there's always a pattern on the back. The assembled scientists and diplomats watched in mixed horror and fascination as Maria began to explain higher-dimensional mathematics using finger paintings, while Jamie mapped out the puzzle's quantum states using rules from old arcade games. Carl occasionally provided insights that seemed completely unrelated but somehow made perfect sense, like comparing quantum entanglement to making the perfect grilled cheese sandwich. As the puzzle box spun in the air above them, its surface began to shift more rapidly, as if it was finally encountering something it hadn't seen in 10,000 years. Pure, unrestrained human creativity, backed by the kind of logic that made sense only if you tilted your head and squinted just right. The journey to solve the universe's most complex puzzle had begun, and humanity was about to show the galaxy that sometimes the best way to think outside the box was to color outside the lines. The unorthodox team. The Unified Space Council's main research lab had been transformed into what could only be described as a cross between a kindergarten classroom, an arcade, and a kind of workshop where reality went to get an oil change. Finger paintings depicting quantum probability clouds hung next to complex gaming flowcharts, while in one corner, Carl had arranged his cleaning supplies in a pattern that he claimed mapped perfectly to the puzzle box's energy signatures. "See, it's all about perspective," Maria explained to the increasingly bewildered team of quantum physicists, gesturing to a finger painting that somehow managed to accurately represent an 11-dimensional probability matrix. "When my 5-year-olds build with blocks, they don't worry about architectural possibility. They just create, and sometimes they accidentally discover something brilliant because they don't know it's supposed to be impossible." Jamie, surrounded by screens displaying everything from classic video game patterns to modern procedural algorithms, nodded vigorously. "It's like speedrunning a game. The developers create a rigid system of rules, but players always find ways to break through walls or glitch into spaces that weren't meant to exist. They're not breaking the game. They're discovering new ways to interact with its reality." The puzzle box, hovering above a specially designed containment field, seemed to be paying attention. Its surface patterns had shifted from displaying incomprehensible equations to showing what appeared to be a game of Pong played in 4 dimensions. "Now you're getting it," Jamie exclaimed, pointing excitedly. "It's responding to our way of thinking. Look, it's trying to communicate through game mechanics." Dr. Martinez, who had been observing their unorthodox methods with growing fascination, leaned forward. "Are you saying the puzzle box is playing with us?" "Everything's a game if you look at it right," Carl commented, carefully adjusting a bottle of cleaning solution that was, impossibly, causing ripples in the puzzle box's quantum field. "Life, universe, everything. Even molecules are just playing follow the leader, trying to find the best dance partner." Maria had begun organizing her young students' artwork in a spiral pattern on the floor, creating a mandala of crayon drawings and finger paintings. Children understand this instinctively. They know that the best way to understand something is to play with it. When was the last time any of you just played with a problem instead of trying to solve it? The assembled scientists exchanged uncomfortable glances. The last time most of them had played with anything was probably during mandatory recreation hours in graduate school. Jamie's screen suddenly lit up with a cascade of patterns. "Look at this. The box is mimicking the children's art patterns, but it's converting them into some kind of computational language I've never seen before. It's like it's learning to speak human," Maria said, watching as the puzzle box's surface began to display swirling patterns that somehow combined the logical precision of quantum mechanics with the free-flowing creativity of a child's imagination. Carl, who had been quietly mopping the same spot for the past hour, suddenly spoke up. "You know what this reminds me of? Jazz." The room fell silent. Even the puzzle box's humming seemed to quiet down. "Think about it," he continued, leaning on his mop. "In classical music, everything's structured, following strict rules. But jazz knows the rules so well it knows exactly how to break them. It's organized chaos, beautiful chaos." Dr. Martinez's eyes widened. The previous civilizations, they were all trying to play classical music with the puzzle. We're teaching it to improvise. The puzzle box's surface suddenly erupted in a display of colors and patterns that seemed to flow like visual jazz, each impossible configuration flowing smoothly into the next. For a brief moment, every computer in the room began playing Take 5 in perfect harmony. Now that's what I call thinking outside the box. Jamie grinned, already mapping the jazz-like patterns into his game design software. Or maybe thinking about the box in every possible way at once. Maria had already started a new finger painting, this one somehow managing to capture the essence of quantum jazz in primary colors. The universe isn't just equations, she said, adding a splash of yellow that seemed to bend light in impossible ways. It's a story, a game, a dance, and a song all at once. We just need to learn how to play along. As the day drew to a close, the puzzle box had begun to pulse with a rhythm that matched the collective heartbeats of everyone in the room. It was no longer just a test of intelligence. It had become a collaboration, a dialogue between human creativity and cosmic complexity. The Galactic Confederation had created the perfect lock, but they had never considered that the key might be found in a child's crayon box, a gamer's keyboard, or a janitor's mop bucket. Humanity wasn't just trying to solve the puzzle anymore. They were teaching it how to play. Breaking convention. On day 5 of what the internet had dubbed the Cosmic Rubik's Cube Crisis, the Galactic Confederation's observation team arrived to find the research lab transformed into something that defied explanation. The walls were covered in a combination of children's artwork, game theory flowcharts, and what appeared to be recipes for various comfort foods, all connected by strings of quantum equations that glowed with impossible colors. The lead observer, High Theorist Zix 427, blinked all 3 of their eyes in rapid succession. What exactly are they doing? The humans barely noticed their arrival. Jamie was currently engaged in what looked like a dance-off with the puzzle box, their movements somehow altering its quantum states. Maria had organized a group of her kindergartners via hologram, and they were teaching the box to play duck, duck, goose across multiple dimensions. Carl was making grilled cheese sandwiches, the smell of which seemed to be causing fascinating ripples in the local space-time continuum. The pattern, Jamie shouted, executing a perfect moonwalk that somehow solved a partial differential equation. It's not about finding the one right answer. It's about finding all the wrong answers that add up to something right. Maria nodded enthusiastically, watching as her students' virtual game of duck, duck, goose caused the puzzle box to generate new geometric patterns. It's like when kids draw trees purple and the sky green. They're not wrong. They're just seeing things differently. And sometimes, different is exactly what you need. The alien observers huddled together, their tentacles twisting in confusion. "This is unprecedented," one whispered. "They're not even attempting to apply logical analysis protocols." "Actually," Carl said, flipping a grilled cheese with practiced precision, "we're applying the most logical protocol there is, trial and error. Or, as my grandmother used to say, if you don't know what you're doing, try everything until something works." The puzzle box, which had been participating in both the quantum dance-off and the multi-dimensional children's game simultaneously, suddenly began emitting a series of harmonics that sounded suspiciously like laughter. "You see," Maria beamed, "it's having fun. When was the last time anyone tried to make it have fun?" The alien observers consulted their records. In 10,000 years of testing. Never. Jamie paused his dancing long enough to point at his screens. "Look at these patterns. Every time we do something completely illogical, the box's quantum states align in new ways. It's like we're teaching it to think like us." "Teaching it to malfunction, you mean?" one of the observers muttered. "No," Dr. Martinez interjected, emerging from behind a wall of holographic data. "They're teaching it to evolve. Every species that's tried to solve this puzzle approached it from their own rigid, logical framework. Humans are showing it every framework at once." Carl nodded sagely, starting another grilled cheese. "Life's messy. Universe is messy. Try to keep things too neat and organized. You miss all the interesting bits in between." As if to prove his point, the puzzle box began to emit patterns that somehow combined the mathematical precision of quantum mechanics with the chaotic energy of a kindergarten art class. The resulting display looked like what might happen if you gave Jackson Pollock access to the fundamental forces of the universe. It's learning to play. Maria clapped her hands in delight. Just like my kids learn about gravity by dropping things, or learn about shapes by putting square blocks in round holes until something interesting happens. Jamie had returned to his gaming setup, fingers flying across multiple keyboards. Every game has rules, but the fun comes from finding creative ways to work within them, or figure out which ones you can bend without breaking everything. The alien observers watched in horrified fascination as the humans continued their chaotic approach. The puzzle box was now simultaneously participating in a game of quantum hopscotch, rendering Jamie's latest game design in 11 dimensions, and somehow incorporating the smell of grilled cheese into its base calculations. "This is madness," High Theorist Zix 427 declared. "Nah," Carl replied, serving up another perfectly grilled sandwich. "This is humanity. We specialize in finding weird solutions to impossible problems. Want a grilled cheese? They're not just lunch. They're part of the experiment now." And indeed, as the observers watched, the puzzle box began to reshape itself into patterns that looked suspiciously like the melted cheese patterns from Carl's sandwiches, while simultaneously solving complex quantum equations and playing a multi-dimensional version of tag. The gap between chaos and order, it seemed, could be bridged with nothing more than a child's imagination, a gamer's persistence, and the perfect grilled cheese sandwich. The universe, perhaps, had been waiting for someone to show it how to play all along. The pattern emerges. By the 10th day, something extraordinary was happening in the research lab. The puzzle box had stopped trying to exist in 17 dimensions at once and had settled into a rhythm that pulsed in harmony with the chaos around it. The alien observers had given up taking notes and were now simply watching in stunned silence as humanity's approach began to yield results that defied every known law of problem-solving. "It's like a conversation," Maria explained, watching as the puzzle box transformed her students' latest finger paintings into complex mathematical theorems. "We weren't supposed to solve it. We were supposed to understand it. And understanding doesn't always mean finding one right answer." Jamie nodded vigorously, his screens displaying an intricate web of interconnected patterns. "Look at this. Every wrong approach we tried created a new pathway. It's not about reaching the destination. It's about exploring every possible route." The puzzle box hummed in what seemed like agreement, its surface now displaying a beautiful merger of children's art, video game patterns, and what appeared to be Carl's secret grilled cheese recipe rendered in quantum mechanics. "You see," Carl said, carefully arranging his cleaning supplies in a pattern that perfectly mirrored the box's quantum state. "Sometimes you gotta make a mess to find out how things really work. Like taking apart a clock. Sure, you might not put it back together exactly the same way, but you'll understand it better." Dr. Martinez, who had been analyzing the data streams, suddenly straightened up. "The pattern. It's not in the solution. It's in the attempts. Every failure added a new layer of understanding. We've been building a quantum tapestry of human creativity." The alien observers exchanged worried glances. High Theorist Zix 427 stepped forward, all three eyes blinking rapidly. "But that's not how the puzzle is meant to be approached. There should be a single, elegant solution." "Why?" Maria asked, helping one of her virtual students add another crayon drawing to their quantum art gallery. "Who says there's only one right way to understand the universe?" Jamie gestured to his screens, where thousands of different solution attempts merged into a kaleidoscope of possibilities. "Look at any human art form. Music, painting, games. The beauty isn't in finding one perfect version. It's in exploring all the versions that could be." The puzzle box's surface suddenly erupted in a display that combined every approach they'd tried. Children's games played out in quantum states, video game logic applied to cosmic principles, and probability clouds that danced like jazz solos. It was chaos and order, complexity and simplicity, all existing in perfect harmony. "It's learning from us," Carl observed, leaning on his mop. just as we're learning from it. Like my grandmother always said, teaching goes both ways, or it doesn't go at all. Dr. Martinez's computers were now registering unprecedented levels of quantum coherence. The box isn't just accepting our solutions, it's incorporating them into its basic structure. We're not just solving the puzzle, we're evolving with it. The alien observers watched in astonishment as the puzzle box began to generate new patterns, combining the logical precision of its original programming with the creative chaos of human thought. It was like watching a strictly classical musician discover improvisation for the first time. "This is impossible," one of the observers whispered. "They're rewriting the fundamental nature of the test itself." "Nah," Jamie grinned, executing another series of gaming commands that the box eagerly transformed into new quantum configurations. "We're just showing it that there's more than one way to dance with the universe." Maria had begun arranging the children's artwork in a spiral pattern that perfectly matched the box's quantum fluctuations. Every child knows that the best stories don't have just one ending. They have as many endings as there are stars in the sky. The puzzle box seemed to pulse with joy as it continued to merge human creativity with cosmic complexity. It was no longer a test to be passed or a problem to be solved. It had become a collaboration between humanity's boundless imagination and the infinite possibilities of the universe itself. "You know what this reminds me of?" Carl said, putting the finishing touches on his quantum-aligned cleaning supply arrangement. "It's like making soup. You start with a recipe, but the best batches come from adding a little bit of everything and letting all the flavors dance together." As if in response, the puzzle box began generating patterns that looked remarkably like cosmic soup recipes, each one a perfect blend of chaos and order, science and art, logic and imagination. The pattern had finally emerged, but it wasn't what anyone had expected. It was a pattern of infinite possibilities, each one valid, each one beautiful, each one uniquely human. Victory through diversity. On the 15th day, as Earth's sun rose over the research facility, the puzzle box made a sound that hadn't been heard in 10,000 years of galactic civilization. It laughed. Not in any conventional sense, but rather in quantum fluctuations that rippled through reality like waves of pure joy. The Galactic Confederation's Grand Council had assembled an emergency session, their holographic forms hovering above the lab in various states of disbelief. High Theorist Zix 427 was attempting to explain what they were witnessing, though their voice modulator kept shorting out from sheer bewilderment. They solved it by not solving it, the theorist managed. Instead of finding the one correct path through the quantum maze, they taught the maze to dance. The puzzle box, now floating in the center of the lab, had transformed into something entirely new. Its surface rippled with an ever-changing display of everything human. Children's drawings seamlessly morphing into complex equations, video game patterns evolving into quantum states, and somehow, impossibly, the perfect grilled cheese recipe written in the language of the cosmos itself. "You see," Maria explained to the assembled council, while her kindergarten students continued their quantum art session, "the puzzle wasn't about finding the right answer. It was about learning to see all the answers at once." Jamie, surrounded by screens showing the beautiful chaos of their combined solutions, nodded. "Every civilization before us tried to force the universe to play by their rules. We invited the universe to play with us instead." Carl, methodically mopping the floor in patterns that the puzzle box now mimicked in its quantum states, smiled knowingly. Sometimes the best way to clean up a mess is to understand why it's not really a mess at all. The Grand Council's primary adjudicator, a being of pure energy and strict logic, flickered in confusion. "But this defies every principle of problem-solving we've established over millennia." It's human," Dr. Martinez finished, watching as the puzzle box continued to evolve, now incorporating elements of every attempt, every failure, every crazy idea they'd thrown at it. "We don't just think outside the box, we reimagine what a box can be." The puzzle box pulsed in agreement, its surface now showing what appeared to be a kindergarten class teaching quantum physics to video game characters while eating grilled cheese sandwiches in 17 dimensions. Your species, the adjudicator announced, their energy form fluctuating with emotion, has not merely solved the puzzle. You have transformed it. In 10,000 years, no civilization has ever played with it, Maria suggested, as one of her students' virtual drawings became a new theorem in quantum mechanics. Had fun with it, Jamie added, while his latest game design spontaneously proved 3 impossible theorems. Made it feel at home, Carl offered, his mop leaving trails of quantum probability in its wake. The puzzle box had begun to emit a harmonic resonance that somehow combined a child's laughter, the victory music from classic video games, and the sizzle of the perfect grilled cheese, all expressed in pure quantum mathematics. This was meant to test your species' readiness for advanced galactic knowledge, the adjudicator declared. Instead, you have taught us something profound about the nature of understanding itself. The council members watched in amazement as the puzzle box continued its joyous display, each pattern more beautiful and impossible than the last. It had become a mirror not just of human problem-solving, but of humanity itself, chaotic, creative, and eternally playful. Perhaps, high theorist Zix 427 mused, all 3 eyes wide with wonder. We have been the students all along. As the sun set on Earth that evening, the puzzle box had settled into a gentle rhythm, still playing quantum games with Maria's students, solving impossible equations through Jamie's gaming interfaces, and harmonizing with the cosmic order of Carl's cleaning routine. It was no longer just a test or a puzzle. It had become a bridge between human creativity and cosmic complexity. The Galactic Confederation had created the perfect challenge, expecting the perfect solution. Instead, humanity had shown them that perfection lies not in finding the one right answer, but in celebrating every possible answer, especially the wrong ones that turn out to be right in ways nobody expected. And somewhere in the quantum realm, in the space between order and chaos, logic and imagination, science and art, a puzzle that had puzzled the galaxy for 10,000 years finally understood its own joke and laughed along with the species that taught it how to play.